Hello everyone, welcome to the classroom. Thank you for joining us as always. Today we will be looking at one of the most interesting character dynamics that I have ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Father, the Homunculi, and von Hohenheim from Fullmetal Alchemist. Thank you for joining us as always. So, first off, I will be using the manga and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood as my source material for this video. You may want me to use Fullmetal 2003, but it's my video and you can play the keyboard on my balls for all I care. Father, the Homunculi, and von Hohenheim make up one of my favorite aspects of all of Fullmetal Alchemist, which is already my favorite manga of all time. Or, I don't know. It's up there for sure. I've finished it. I'm not very good at finishing series. I also really like Death Note, though. Chainsaw Man is perfect. I love My Hero. Soul Eater is shaping up really fantastically. So yes, today I will be discussing just what these three parties mean to each other and why I love their dynamics so much. Of course, once again, I will be using the manga and Brotherhood as my official canon sources, and if you don't like that, you can
drum on my penis.
When I first started watching Brotherhood, I had one supreme hatred in my heart. My existence was defined by the malice I felt in my soul for one man, von Hohenheim. I was under the impression, pushed by the woke media, Edward Elric, that von Hohenheim was a deadbeat piece of shit. And then I was under the impression, pushed by the woke media once again, my own eyes and ears, that von Hohenheim even created the Homunculi. If I had one wish when I was watching Brotherhood for the first time, it would have been to bring von Hohenheim to our world. And then if I had a second wish, I would wish for a hammer to beat him to death with. There's a lot of weird shit we half learn about Hohenheim in the first 2/3 of the series, like little pieces of a puzzle that make a man that you want to beat to death with a hammer. But now, I'm sorry, but I love von Hohenheim. I'm a Von head. But then the series takes us back to sometime before 1558 to the city-state of Xerxes. And just for reference, the main series is set in 1914. And to be honest, when this flashback started, I didn't want to be in the city-state of Xerxes circa 1558. It made me feel like how I feel when I look at more than a paragraph of text in a video game. But I quickly settled into this gorgeous rendition of an ancient city on the brink of a changing world. A young slave, known simply as Number 23, has helped create something revolutionary, unpredictable, unknowable. It's this little black fuck in this jar. Though he is not so much a man and more of an amorphous cloud of black mist who can summon a mouth and eyes and like a little hand, but he is stuck in that jar. This little thing, known as a homunculus, talks to slave number 23, teaching him the basics of alchemy and even giving him a name. Von Hohenheim. Von and the homunculus become friends, in a way. Von becomes a master of alchemy, and the homunculus tricks the king of Xerxes into sacrificing the souls of the city-state so that he can be immortal. Due to him using von Hohenheim's exact form as a vessel, however, Von is also kept alive and turned into a living philosopher's stone. He then creates the living embodiments of his own inner sin, pride, lust, greed, envy, sloth, and gluttony, and then a few decades later he also makes wrath. I don't know why he got lazy. The homunculus, now called Father, uses the military power of a mistress, which he now controls, to conduct a genocide on the Ishvalan people, engineering massacre after massacre until a massive transmutation circle all over a mistress is created. He then uses this circle and a bunch of human sacrifices to become a giant guy so that he can swallow God and that he can become hot and then he can fight a 15-year-old hand-to-hand. Wow, okay, that is a lot. That's a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like Father's overarching plot, but watching it unfold is obviously better than what I just did. So, why did I do that? Well, because this isn't really about the plot, as much as it is about what these characters mean to each other. I think that the best place to start next is the other homunculi. As I mentioned already, they are named after the 7 deadly sins, but not just that, they are, like, literally the 7 deadly sins. Father takes these traits like his greed, his sloth, his overwhelming horniness, and through some magic that I'm still a little iffy on, he creates personified alchemical beings of that trait. seemingly removing that trait from his very soul. Let's compare this to von Hohenheim, who I very quickly mentioned earlier is a living philosopher's stone. What does that mean? A philosopher's stone is a piece of matter made from human souls which can do alchemy without having to adhere to the physical properties of our world, i.e. the conversion of matter or equivalent exchange. But what does this mean for someone like von Hohenheim? Obviously, that power for a lot of people would mean that you are now God Mayor of the Tri-Planet area, but von Hohenheim just isn't like that. He's actually a pretty simple dude, not even asking for a real name when the homunculus offered him one. All Von has ever wanted is a family and a home of his own, in very sharp contrast to Father, who at one point literally swallows God. So this means that since all those decades ago, Father has had half of the souls of the city of Xerxes in his body, and Hohenheim has had the other half. We see through other weird alchemy beings like greed and wrath what having all of those souls in you is like. It's a massive sea, which all vie for power, but over time, they just become a constant white noise to be tuned out, unless, of course, you choose to listen to them. Over the hundreds of years that Von gets between Xerxes and his eventual death, he did something incredibly human. Von spent countless days and nights trying to learn the names of each and every soul stuck inside of him. Not just that, he learned their hopes, fears, dreams, and whole lives. He embraced every side of every soul stuck inside of him. So let's compare what Hohenheim did with the multitude of souls inside of him to what Father did to himself. Father pushed down all the souls he got, only using them for unimaginable amounts of alchemical power, and then he mangles his own soul through making his children. I mean, sure, Father gets rid of all of those sinful traits, but does it make him any more human? Any less of an alchemical aberration? Well, no, not at all. I mean, really, how could it? We all have these flaws. Like, unless you literally sprinted out of bed this morning, you have committed the mortal sin of sloth. In many ways, these are the traits that make us who we are. As Greed puts it, we all have greed. Everyone wants something they don't have. I think that one of the biggest keys to all of this is understanding that von Hohenheim embraced his humanity and Father rejected it. Let me talk about a few other scenes to illustrate this point again. When the homunculus and number 23 first meet, the homunculus gives Von his name, which he didn't really want. And then he tries to teach Von how to read and write, which he also doesn't really seem to want, saying he doesn't need that for his work. Reluctantly, Von does let the homunculus teach him, his master then forcing Von to learn the mastery of alchemy, making him his assistant instead of his slave. Later, the homunculus and Von are talking and looking at the sunset. Von expresses his desire to find happiness through a family and a home of his own. The homunculus, however, takes that and describes this desire as having to build communities in order to breed and propagate your species. Von asks him in return what he would like, what would make him happy, and he responds, "I think I would be happy if I just got to leave this flask." Now the issue with that, of course, is that there's always a bigger flask, leading him, of course, to swallowing God, becoming hot, and throwing hands with a 15-year-old. Obviously, this whole saga is very steeped in some pretty heady philosophical ideas, but I think above it all, I just love that Von and Father are literally the same person. The only difference between them is that one of them chooses to embrace their humanity and the other decides to reject it. Von was always happy to embrace his humanity, to just settle down and have a family, but the homunculus just wanted to escape his flask. But being a person means having a flask. It means having flaws and sin, and it means aging and dying one day. But all you can really hope for, in my opinion, is that you do it all happily, and you do good for humanity. And von Hohenheim did that. The story of von Hohenheim, Father, and the homunculi, and how they interact with each other and what they say about each other, is one of my favorite parts of a story, and not just anime, and not just manga, but in all of storytelling, period. Really. Granted, about 99.9% of what I read, watch, or listen to, or think about, or dream about is about anime and manga, so I don't know how relevant my opinion is here, actually. But that is the video for this week. I really hope that y'all had a great time watching it. I really liked putting this one together. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch y'all next week. Bye. Hey y'all, thank you so much for watching that video. I really appreciate it, especially if you've gotten to this point. A double thank you. I didn't feel like saying it in the main video because it was more of like an informative and like, I don't know, like heady, more like philosophical one. But please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps a lot. My channel's been going through a huge boost lately. It's been awesome, but I really want to just keep riding that momentum. But I didn't want to put it in the main video. It felt weird for this one. I don't know. But anyways, what I have to show off for my collection this week is Black Paradox. This is by Junji Ito. It's a pretty new Ito one to my knowledge. This is at least a new printing, if the story is not very new. But it is fantastic so far. It really has Ito take a look at consumerism and consumer culture and the economy that I don't think I've seen him do in any of his other works. Please inform me in the comments if you think that I'm wrong. Here's all of my Ito that I have so far right here, so you can base it off of that. But that is the video for this week, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.